we are, episode 28. We have a special guest hanging out with us today, Mr. Jim Graham of the Jim G Coaching Club, live on with us this evening. How's it going today, sir?
It's going well. It's going well. How you guys doing?
All right.
Hey, Trey.
All right. Thanks for taking time to be on our show today. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
So you know how when you're on Facebook and you're scrolling for whatever reason, you know, maybe a clip from an old show or a movie scene or something pops up, or ad for something interesting pops up on your Facebook feed. So I had idle time. Much of it caught my attention. I looked into it. I mean, I tapped on it, and it still didn't really catch my attention. So I really didn't pay no more attention. I kept going. Got back on Facebook one time. I guess they figured out that, I showed a little interest in this one time. Let's keep showing it to them. And so it kept popping up on my timeline. Make money on an Airbnb without owning the property. So I just took the time and stopped and looked at, what it was. And I saw a video that Mr. Jim Graham was on, and he basically was giving a tutorial, step-by-step on how you can make money, making money from an Airbnb and not owning it. So I'm like, wait, this is too good to be true. So I watched the video. I paid attention to, there's some verbiage you copy and paste and put on Zillow and wait on the replies, etc. But it's a whole strategy to it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get to it. So I signed up. I get the newsletters and the emails, and I'm like, this will be somebody that'll be good to come on our show just to talk about that. And without further ado, Mr. Jim Graham is here. So basically, tell us give us some background on yourself.
Please.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. So, former military, former military, former drill sergeant, former officer in the Army. And so NCO, then became, then went to OCS, became an officer, did 11 years in the military. That's some of the background.
Thank you for your service and your sacrifice.
Amen. You're welcome. Blessing. It's a blessing. So I've been doing real estate, however, for 30 years. And as an investor, but it wasn't like I started with real estate 30 years ago thinking, oh man, this is my dream. I want to do this. Like, that wasn't it. Like, when I was in my junior year of college, I got a call from my mom, and, I'm the oldest of two other siblings. We grew up really, broken home, single parent, really in poverty pretty much. And I'm now, 300 miles away in Buffalo, 250 miles away in Buffalo, trying to do something different to break that generational cycle. That's what I say today. I didn't really recognize all that then, but, and then one day I get this call from my mom telling me that she's dying. And so that just rocked my world. I mean, it really took my life and just turned it upside down, because when I got that message, the one thing that I thought about when I got some semblance of my stomach back, because I just lost it, and was that, how am I going to take care of my younger brother and sister in the event my mom passes away? Like, that was it. That's what hit me. And literally, I can't tell you if it was the same day, but I know it was somewhere in that vicinity where I saw this thing pop up on television, and it was a Carlton Sheets infomercial back in the day.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yes, Alex. Yeah. And listening to it, watching it, I was like, maybe that's it for me. Maybe if I could, at least, if nothing else, just get my own place. That way I could have a roof over our heads. And that way that would be my start of being able to take care of my younger brother and sister in the event my mom passes. And so So that was it. Like literally, that was it for me. Like that, in college, I was not a great student. I mean, I wasn't dumb, but I wasn't focused. And I wasn't taking things so serious at that point. Like I had gotten there, I got out of the hood, I was there, and I wasn't really serious about life at that point. I had goals and vision, but I wasn't focused. And but talk about focus, when I got that phone call, like it changed. Mm-hmm. And so what I ended up doing was literally like I didn't have any money, but I found a way to order that Carlton Sheets course. And and I started studying it. And I was so committed to that thing, as far as that vision that God had gave me at that point, which was get that place, get that roof over your head. Because we didn't own a house. Like I didn't know anyone that owned a house, but yet he gave me that vision that would be it. And to tell you my level of commitment, like my final year of college, I left school because I was so committed to that vision.
Wow.
And so what I started doing, I studied the course. I studied like nothing I ever studied before. And and I started making offers on places back then. Creative real estate offers, how to buy property, no money down. That was his course back then. How to buy property, no money down. I started making offers, and like one after the other, no, across the board. I was getting turned down across the board. And so, but here's the thing for me, because my why was much bigger than that, it didn't stop me. And so after a year of getting no's, if my why wasn't so big, I would have been done. Like it was so, I was so dejected at certain points, right? And discouraged, but I kept pushing because it was bigger than me. And finally, I got that first yes. I got my first place. I remember that guy's name to this day. His name was Ender Malik. He was an Indian immigrant that came over, and he was a realtor and an investor and owned properties. And he met me, and we talked, and he saw something that was a little different, and he took his chance on me. And I picked up that place. I was able to get our first home with him holding a mortgage for me. And we were able to go in right in the University District. And literally within a year and a half from there, me and my fiance at the time, who's now my wife, we went in, we did some things to it. I was able to refinance that place, pay Ender off like in less than 2 years, and the rest is history, right? And so,
shout out to Ender Malik.
Shout out to Ender Malik. Listen, thank you, because I don't know where I would have been if he hadn't said yes, right? But he did, and he never regretted it. And because of that, there were so many other people that were blessed later on because of it. And so, let me tell you what I mean by that. So now, when I got that first yes, there was something else there was another light bulb that went on in my head. And that light bulb was, you know what? I don't have to just use real estate as a way to just put a roof over our heads. Maybe I can use real estate as a way to create financial independence, to build wealth, to break the generational cycle, so that my future children and my future grandchildren and my nieces and nephews won't have to grow up in poverty the way we did. And so that they would have access to the resources and to the opportunities that we could only dream about back then. Right. And so now my mindset was, maybe I can do this thing like in a different way. Maybe I can become a real estate investor. Now, when you talk about stepping out in faith, I had already stepped out in faith once and doing that thing. But now it's like, wait a minute, like, who are you to begin to believe that you can now start building wealth and do all these things with real estate? You got, like, number one, you had no credit. Number two, you have no income. Number two, you have no experience, and you don't even know anybody that owns property, but you think you can do this?
The audacity of hope, man, and just to be healthily delusional.
And that's exactly what it was. Thank you. Right? Because I believe and so I pursued that, and by the grace of God, I was able to accomplish all those things. Right. And but here's the thing, like I got off track. Like when I got that first place, we finally closed on it and I got it. Then I like to call, like I bought into what they call the lie. Like I like to call it the lie, because the lie is society wants us to believe. And back then they still do it today, but back then they said, you know, the only way that you're going to be successful in real estate is you got to do it the traditional way. You got to go out. You got to go you know, you when it comes to getting your first place, what you want to do is you want to go to the realtor, and then you want to, you know, you got to go to the bank and beg them to borrow some money, and then after you beg them to borrow money, you got to go through all these hoops, jump through all these hoops, and then come up with all this money for a down payment, wipe out your whole savings and all this stuff. And then once you do that, if they do approve you, then what's going to happen is now, you know, you get to close. And then when you close on the property, you start collecting your rent. But when you collect your rent, now you gotta, you know, you can pay your mortgage, right? And then you got a couple $100 maybe left over for you to save up and do it all again, right? That's what they taught then, and that's what they teach today, pretty much. And to me, I say don't believe the lie, because I went that direction, even though I got my first one in a non-traditional way. If I would have continued to do it the way I learned the first time, I would have been financially independent in 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
I went the old way. Oh, and by the way, this is what they want you to know too. In order for you to get that loan, you got to go get a job. You got to go get a job, right? So here's the thing. So I took that route. I got off track and took that route. And 9 years later, I acquired more properties. But when I look up, if I were to leave my job at that point, I didn't have enough cash flow to support my lifestyle from the real estate holdings that I had.
Right.
I would have been financially independent in 3 years if I would have stayed doing it the way I did it.
Wow.
9 years later, I'm looking up and I'm still not financially independent. So I said, you know what? This has got to change. Something's going to change. I mean, I going through the ranks. I was in banking. I figured, you know what? If I gotta go get a job so that I can access money to get more properties, I'll go to the bank. That way, if I learn banking and finance, I'll be able to control money and how to do that. And that's what I did. And I rose through the ranks. I became a vice president eventually, and you know, making 6 figures and all that. And I got comfortable though. Right, I got comfortable. You know, you get comfortable. You're making money. I'm doing country clubs, playing golf, fine restaurants, all that stuff. I got comfortable.
Yeah,
but one day they helped wake me up, thank God. And what they said to me was, you know what? We're going to be changing some of the bonus plans this year. And even though you guys made all this money for us, and you were expecting to get this much, because we changed the bonus plan, like you're going to get. It's like 50. I mean, it was significant, like $15,000-$20,000 less than what you were expecting. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I had to jump through all these hoops to let the bank understand that no, like this is money that we already earned and it's mine. So eventually I got it, but I said this will never happen again, because it helped me to realize they still control my destiny and my income.
Okay.
So what I did was I went back to my old non-traditional methods from 9 years ago. I did 13 transactions that year. I made over $300,000. I wrote my letter of resignation to the bank. I said bye-bye, and I never looked back.
Wow.
3 years later, forward fast, 3 years later, now I'm making over $1 million a year in real estate, doing 50, 100 transactions a year. Now I'm there. I think I'm there, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing though. This is what I like to tell people too. Like my focus at that point was like, I was focused now. It's like I never made this kind of money before. I came from nothing. I don't have time for anything. Like I'm just going to focus. How long can I do this? How much can I do of it? Right.
Yeah, of course.
And that was it. That was me. But think about this for just a second. Like today, thank God, thank the Lord that he changed my heart in that area, because I wasn't really sharing information. I was just focused. Right. And he changed my heart, because even though I was a good provider back then, and as I mentioned, my wife and I have been together 35 years. Thank God he blessed me with a woman that had patience, and he blessed me with a woman that knew how to pray, because although I was a good provider, I was a horrible husband and a horrible father. Why? Because I was never around. Mm-hmm. Right? I was so, I was chasing it. Today, my priorities are so different. Today, my first priority is my first ministry is my wife and my kids. Right? That's number one. Number two, he's calling me to be a blessing to the church and the community in so many different ways. And that's my second priority, to do that in the way I'm called to do. The third is my students. I one of the things I do today is I teach and coach, and mentor students all over the world, 24 different countries my students are in. And I'm able to share that gift that he gave me, that gift to help them to accomplish the same thing, to have that, to utilize the non-traditional methods. And today it's mainly the Airbnb passive income, how to start and grow your $5,000 to $15,000 Airbnb passive income portfolio without owning property, right? So I do that with my students, and based on their vision, that God's given them for their life, and a lot of our visions are the same. It's bigger than them. It's not just about making a bunch of money so we can sit and live and be fat and and pigs, right? That's not it. It's about really having that financial freedom so that we could take those gifts and that passion and make a real mark on the world the way God's calling us to do.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's it. So he's changed my heart. And then the fourth thing is a little bit more vain. We like to travel, right? So, but with that, that's all you're going to see, right? On my calendar are those four things, like my wife and my kids, the ministry, my students, and then our travel. Like that's it. And so I say all that to say this, like now, like and now, like my focus, my priorities are so much different. And with Airbnb passive income, the reason why I love that is because it's simple, right? And that's one of the things you'll see if you watch any of my stuff. My motto is keep it simple, because for me, if it's not simple, that means it's going to be taken away from that. I'm not going to be able to do the way I want to do, right? Because I'm actually out there doing all this other stuff. And I've done over 700 real estate transactions. I made millions of dollars, and a lot of it is complicated stuff that most people are not really interested in, right? But the beauty of Airbnb is that when you do it properly, like I literally spend about 10 minutes a day on my phone just kind of monitoring some things. I haven't been to one of my Airbnb properties in ages. I got people checking in, checking out all day. And it doesn't matter where I'm at in the world, what I'm doing. Airbnb makes electronic funds transfers into my account. And I'll show you that in a second. Electronic funds transfers into my account every day, pretty much every day. And again, people are checking in and out, and it's happening without me being the center of attention. So it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to support the vision and the life that God's given me for my family and for myself. And the same thing for my students. And that's what I teach my students how to do.
So I have a question here. So that means you made a switch somewhere from, or did you not? Did you just add Airbnb to what you're doing? So I'm curious, are you exclusively Airbnb now, or is your business dealings, your transactions kind of a mixture of Airbnb and kind of traditional real estate?
Yeah, so I jumped a little bit on you and didn't explain that transition part. So what happened, like I still own real estate. At one point I had over 250 units in my portfolio. Today, what I do is I keep under 50 and really I'm even winding that down because part of what I did, like back in you guys remember 2008, 2009, we had the crash, the market crash.
Yeah. Oh yes, I know.
So, yeah, you know, huh?
Oh, I know.
You had to take a deep breath. I hope you don't know that well. but yeah, I know too. And you know what? It was a blessing in so many different ways for me because at that point I had 50 people working for me. We were just crunching crap. We were just churning. And then we realized that, I started winding, I had to start whittling it down because the market really wasn't coming back. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I ended up having to just dissolve the company. Right. Wow. But I held on for a number of years, but eventually it was just like it's not happening. So right. I had to dissolve the company. And the beauty of that was now, the Lord used that as an opportunity for me to learn how to be a real father, a dad, not a father, a dad, and a husband. So now, now it's just about my wife and kids, and I'm doing the daddy thing. I'm taking them to school. I'm involved in I'm there reading books at school and making their lunches. Like it was beautiful. It was wonderful. And then eventually, I'm coaching them and we got basketball teams and they're traveling the country with them and other kids that don't have dads in their lives and things. And, all my kids eventually ended up playing college ball. My daughter went Division I. My son plays semi-pro ball. So like, that was the dad part that really, it was a blessing in disguise in so many different ways. Right. And so then I said, okay, but what am I going to do, Lord? Like, what does you want me to do? And he kept calling me to do this homeless ministry. And I did not want to do it. I was like Jonah. Like I was fighting it and running and fighting it and running. And eventually I said, okay, Lord, like I'm going to submit because you keep coming at me with this thing. And like there must be something there that you want me to do and want me to see. So I submitted. And when I submitted, let me tell you, he changed my heart because there was nothing else that I wanted to do once I started doing it. I was doing the homeless ministry, so I converted a bunch of my places over to help, the men and women. I call them my Christian men and women's homes, and that's what I did. I was doing Bible studies, and I still have it today, but I'm not involved every day like I was then. But for 4 or 5 years, that's all I did all day long. In my real estate, I didn't even think about that stuff. But he kept blessing me because he kept growing my portfolio by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units a year without me doing anything. It just was falling in my lap. But that's all I wanted to do. And so with that, here's a transition. After about the 4th, 5th year, like I was, I'm asking, there were some things that started taking its toll on my family from a spiritual perspective. And because it was a lot going on. And I was asking the Lord for about 6 months, Lord, this is what you want me to keep doing? Like how do you want, like, I'm not going to just throw this back at you because you gave it to me, it's yours. So help me to see. And, and I had people, can you mentor me in real estate? I had my pastor friends, could you help me? My, people. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that stuff no more. Like, this is what I do. And, but I still had real estate, right? That was it. But then I'm asking a question. And then my oldest daughter graduated from college and she said, Dad, I want to work with you in real estate.
Oh, the babies have a way of doing it, right?
There you go, girl. So listen, I said, okay, Lord, there it is. So I brought someone in to help me with the homeless ministry that had a heart for the men and the women, that did a lot of the day-to-day stuff that I was doing before. And so they did that, and then I came in and I said, "Come on, sweetie." So I taught her. It's about building legacy. Remember that, right?
Absolutely.
It's legacy. It's what can go. What's going to go on well after me, right? And it wasn't necessarily the money, but it was about the wisdom and about the resources, so that they understand that in order for them to do what they're really called to do, they don't have to be on a hamster wheel punching that clock for somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. That and so I'm mentoring her, showing her she's doing a great job. She's understanding how to do flips and rehabs and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's put the brakes on for a little bit. You've done a great job, but this is not what we're gonna be doing, right? Because like this is it's still complicated stuff. And that means in order to really grow this thing, I gotta still be spending a lot of time away from the things that are most important to me.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
So I said, this Airbnb thing, I've been hearing some things about it. I want to do some tests on it just to check it out because like I'm hearing some things. And at that time, I mean, I know real estate like the back of my hand, so I'm not worried about that, but I don't know anything about Airbnb. So
right.
I got a learning curve there. Mm-hmm. So I tested a few things and it was working. She goes, Dad, it's not going to work. I tested it. It worked. I tested it again. It worked. I'm like, there's something here. Within the first 6 months, first I kind of cheated. I used a couple of my own places in the beginning, just to kind of, and then I'm like, there's something here. Like, but I can't just convert all my places. And I don't want to go out and start buying properties. So the same way I helped to grow my homeless ministry, maybe I'll use the same concept. Maybe I'll start leasing some of the places and see if that worked. And I did it and it worked.
And so I started using, we went from 0 to 21 listings in 9 months. So and that's kind of the last thing I remember saying.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what popped in? So let's fast forward to today.
Okay.
The whole because the first thing I thought when I saw this on Facebook, oh wait, this is a scam. They're trying to, how can I make some money without owning a property? Of course, the first thing I'm skeptical, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of other people were as well. Break that down, how you discovered that would be, profitable for you.
Well, I mean, the way I discovered it would be profitable, as I mentioned, like I had already tested, number one, what that Airbnb, like the money that we make, the way I do it with Airbnb, number one, it's more than what I would normally make on my rents. So for instance, like when I do Airbnb the way we do it, because like my and I'll show you later when we share the screen if you want to see it.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, we could do that now if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, let's do that, and that'll help me. I could talk through it a little bit. So,
okay.
Let's see, share window screen. I'm gonna share entire screen, and boom, allow. So
I like where you're going here. You're about to say you're making more money than you were making on your rents, which I think is awesome because usually you were thinking where I thought you were going is it was more of the freedom that you were getting from Airbnb, but now you're saying it's twofold. You're getting not only the freedom, but you're also bringing in more.
Bringing in more. I'm getting the freedom. It ain't like Airbnb. You hear my vernacular. It ain't. So it's not like it's not like being a landlord. Like when I say I tested. Like testing, when I tested, I wanted to test to see a couple things. Like, is it, how much work is involved? I wanted to test to see how much I'm going to be making. Like, is this thing scalable? You remember when I told my daughter, let's put the brakes on for a bit because the stuff that I'm teaching you and showing you now, in order for us to really do this thing, and if I were to do more and more of it, is it still gonna support those 4 things that are most important to me?
Right. And
so from an Airbnb perspective, when I look, it does, because if I do it right, like the way I was seeing it, if I'm gonna not have to take so much time away from my wife and kids. I'm not gonna have to be able to take so much time away from the ministry that I'm called to do. I'm not gonna have to take so much time away from, and at that time I wasn't really coaching and training. But we still enjoyed traveling. But my thought process was like, and this is how I look at everything, like not can this thing be done without me? Like once I get it to a certain point, like, can I get it to operate without me? And if I can get it to operate without me, that means now it's unlimited to how much I can do it. Right. And so that was it. Like, that was my mindset when I thought about it. And the answer was yes. So when we got to that first 21 listings, like, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So just to give you a little idea, like, this is my one of my live Airbnb accounts, one of them. And last year I did $145,000 in this account. However, what the expectation was before COVID was that I'd be around 170, 180,000 in this account. And so in April, May, June, where most Airbnb hosts ended up at zero, because when COVID hit, everybody was canceling and Airbnb was refunding everybody's money, and they were doing it based on what they called a extenuating circumstances. So the way it works, like my cancellation policy on Airbnb is a strict cancellation policy, which means when you book, you got 48 hours. If it's within 2 weeks, if it's 2 weeks or less, you got 48 hours to cancel and you get a full refund. After that, there's no refund. Well, when people were canceling because of COVID, Airbnb said we could care less about what our cancellation policies are. Everybody's getting their money back. So people were losing their shirts with Airbnb because they, before they would have to contact you and say, are you willing to do the refund and all that stuff? They were saying, I don't care if you're willing or not. Boom, we're taking everything. And people were just at zero. So for us, though, we didn't go to zero in April, May, and June. And the reason being is because our bread and butter is not vacation travelers, right? Our bread and butter is not tourists. And so here's the concept I want you to understand for a second. And hopefully I'm going to get to that answer that you asked earlier. The concept is what we do, and in real estate, it's called your niche. Like our niche, and it's not just real estate, but in anything, like what's your niche? Like, what do you focus on? What's your specialty? And what our specialty is business travelers. And here's another part of our specialty. It's not only business travelers, but we do shared housing. And so why does that make a difference? Well, when our business travelers were, when COVID hit, everybody that was canceling were, they were vacationers, they were tourists.
Yep, for sure.
Right? And they weren't trying to do any more vacations or tourists because they shut the world down. Right? No one was traveling for those reasons. However, there were still people out there that had to operate their businesses. For instance, the hospitals, the universities, even though people weren't able to still, stay on campus, the universities still had to operate. The utility companies, and most of the people that are coming in and many of the people that were critical to operating those companies, those businesses, those entities, they were not all locals. Many of them were traveling in from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And the question is, where were they staying? In many cases, they were staying with people like myself and my students, where we had places just for them, right? Where it wasn't hotels because they were still trying to socially distance.
That's right.
Right. And so they were still staying with us. And as you can see, like back in July, we started getting back to where I should have been back in April and May. In July, I ended the month at $15,770. In August, I ended the month at $19,221 in this account. In September, $15,123. In October, $17,206. In November, $12,880. In December, $14,254. Now, let's take a quick peek at. So again, I was expecting to be at 170, 180 in this account. I'm not complaining because we were still blessed, still made a lot of money, but it's just not what we were expecting. Now, forward fast to January 2021, if you look, the account so far for the year is at 29,736. So and for the month, I'm just under 16,000 for the month, right? So think about that. So right now we're already tracking in this same account to do that 170, 180 for the year or more, right? Because we're not doing business. I'm sorry, we're not doing our bread and butter is not
vacation travel.
Vacation travel. Now, here's the other thing I said. We do shared housing. Remember I told you about the homeless ministry that I did, my Christian men's homes and my Christian women's homes. That's what I have. Well, that was all shared housing. It was all shared housing. And that was where my daughter was saying, Dad, this won't work. Because I said, you know what, if we could do shared housing with Airbnb, when you do it right, it's going to make a lot of sense. Now, something I didn't know about Airbnb that I do know now that made it very natural for it to work was that most people that do Airbnb, they don't do it. They what they do with Airbnb is they're just, you know, a mom and a dad or whatever that has some extra space in their home. And when people come to stay in their place, they're staying where the people actually live. They're just coming to stay in one of their rooms or whatever and experience what, you know, the whatever they're here for, and that's it, right? Well, we're doing essentially the same thing, but the difference is it's only our business travelers, and I don't live there. So what we found was that the business travelers, their mindset is, if I could just have a nice, safe, clean, affordable space where I can lay my head when I'm in town, where I can shower and maybe eat, and I'm in an environment with other like-minded people that are going to have the same consideration for them, for me, that I'm having for them while I'm there, then that's perfect. And that's what we do. So so what they do is when they come in, they're sharing the general, the common areas of the kitchen, in some cases, the bathroom, the living room, but their room is private. Okay. So what made me think that, while, you know, from a rental perspective, it could work? Well, from a financial perspective, it made sense, because when I did it that way, now the revenue, when you do it properly, the revenue, I was making 2 and 3 times more than what I would make on a normal rental for renting that whole place out.
Wow.
And most owners, they don't know how to do Airbnb and do Airbnb this way. And most owners are like, you know, I'm a landlord. I've been a landlord for 30 years. So I understand, like, we're pretty, you know, we got our blinders on. We stay in our lane. We're not trying to really learn or do anything different. Like, this is what we do. This is what we focus on, traditional rentals. Well, here we go. Now it's non-traditional, where I'm not a landlord anymore. But if I'm making 2 and 3 times as much as I would make when I'm renting, then I can rent properties. I can still pay that landlord their normal rent. And guess what? I'm making as much, if not more, than what they're making.
Wow.
And
this is legal.
It's very legal. All our landlords know what we're doing.
That's what I was going to say. They know what you're doing.
They know what we're doing. It's fine. It's very legal, right? It's because I'm the tenant, and they understand that I'm using that property, and my students, they use their properties to host their guests and their clients when they come into town. That's it. And so we have control. We don't have to report to anyone. All we're doing is, you know, these places, when people are coming in, they're ready. They're always ready for people to come and go. And the landlords love us, because, you know what we essentially did for them? We essentially give them a passive income investment, because they're not worried about maintenance or anything like that, taking care of places, unless it's a major repair that has to be done. Other than that, like, our places are better when we get them and when they get them back than they were when they first gave them to us. Why? Because we always have our professional folks in there taking care of the places, making sure the places are ready when people come and when people leave, right? So they're always on point, right? So that's and the landlords, after a couple months, they're literally trying to give us everything that they got.
Wow.
Right? So that's how this thing works. And from a cash flow perspective, here's the other thing I love so much about it, is not only is it scalable from that perspective, because we have a system where we're not chasing landlords. We don't have to negotiate rents. Like landlords actually reach out to my students, whatever area you're in, whether you're in Chicago or Texas, or you're in Seattle or San Fran. Like the landlords, New York, like the landlords actually reach out to you in your areas to see if you want to lease their space.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
I need in on that.
How do they
Yeah.
hear? How do they know to reach out to you?
So that's part of the system. So one of the things that that's one of the things that Trey was talking about earlier. Like I have a system that it's about keeping it simple, right? And part of that is how we reach out. I mean, how they come to know that we even exist.
Yeah.
Right. And we do that using a platform called Zillow. And we do that literally, like we're not running around chasing, like they come to know how we exist. And there's a template that I give all my students that I help them modify. And with that template, then the landlords know. And then with that template, they begin to reach out to us and invite us out to take a look at their places. And only landlords that fit our formula. And our formula is, if we're not making 2 to 3 times more than what the rent is, then we don't want anything to do with it. So for instance, if you're paying, $1,800 for a place, if you're not keeping anything between $1,800 and $3,600 in your pocket after you pay your rent, like we don't touch it. Like you don't want anything to do with that. And so no, you're not even going to be hearing from landlords that don't have places that fit that formula. Only landlords that fit that formula will reach out. And I don't even know these guys. Like they're just people in your area that will be reaching out. And when my students get enrolled, literally within 24 hours after getting enrolled in the program, landlords are reaching out to them. That's how it works. That's how fast it works. So the other thing that I love so much about Airbnb, when the way we do it, the passive income side, is that Airbnb makes electronic funds transfers into my account pretty much every day. And so, like for instance, yesterday,
Every day.
pretty much every day. So yesterday was the 17th. They deposited $983 into my account in this account. The day before that, they made a couple deposits totaling just about $1,840, $30-$40. The day before that, they made another deposit, a couple more deposits totaling about $350. The day before that, they made a couple more deposits totaling about $256. The day before that, they made another one of $571. Before that, they made another one of $1,221.21. Another one before that of $784. That was on the 11th. They skipped a day. So now on the 9th, they made a couple more of about $230, $40. On the 8th, they made another one of $695.87. The 7th, $366. On the 6th, $180. On the 5th, they did a couple more of about $440. On the 4th, $79. On the 3rd, actually, I made a couple, I think, on the 3rd. Let me just real quick.
Yeah.
Is showing, just to give you an idea. So on the 3rd, yeah, they did. They made 2 deposits on the 3rd, totaling about $1,530. On the 2nd, $1,370. On the 1st, $404. So you got the point. Like other than a day here or there, maybe where they skipped a day, it's every day. Now, here's the thing: when I start talking about keeping it simple, this is where it'll blow your mind, kind of, because when I want to add another place to the portfolio, I'm not going into my reserves and pulling out $200,000 or $300,000 to go buy another property. All I'm doing is going into my electronic funds transfers this week, and I'm only paying first month's rent and security deposit to pick up another one. Right? So all that is a couple of these deposits, and I got another one that adds to the portfolio.
Wow.
That's how it works. So when it comes to Airbnb passive income, like I love this stuff because it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Not just for me, but my students, when they set up their accounts, it's the same way. It works the same way.
So we're on Zillow. What do we do while we're on Zillow? is it a complicated procedure to recruit people to get these Airbnbs, or is it relatively pretty easy?
Yeah, I mean, when you start talking about like recruiting, I'm not recruiting anybody, neither are you, right? So basically what you're doing on Zillow, if you want, I could show you real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see.
See how to do it.
Absolutely.
So when you go on Zillow, like there is a formula. Like you don't just go on Zillow. Like there is a formula, and based on the time we have, I can't really get too deep into that. But there's a formula that we use on using Airbnb to determine, you know, what you can actually make in an area. So, for instance, Chicago. I mean, I have students out in Chicago that are doing it. I got students all, you know, in Texas and California. I mean, they're all over. But when I look, I go on Airbnb and I get a feel for, number one, I determine how much I can get for my place again on Airbnb per night. Right. So I'll give you a real quick tutorial. Is that all right?
No problem.
I might as well, right? I might as well. What the hey? So all right. So for instance, like when I look on Airbnb and I see in Chicago area, you know, and I know the numbers. Like right now, Chicago is a little bit adjusted for COVID. So it is a little bit adjusted. But I go into Chicago and I'm seeing, okay, per night, I'm getting anywhere between, so you scroll down, you got $30 a night, he's got 13 reviews, you got $23 a night, 23 reviews, you got $41 a night, 258 reviews, that makes sense, $40 a night, 15 reviews, $35 a night. So somewhere between $42 a night, 115 reviews, right? So here's the thing. It's telling me for my rooms, I can get anywhere between, say, 35 and right now with the adjustments of COVID, about $45 a night. So let's just use $40 as our median, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm getting $40 a night for one of my places, that isn't for the whole place. If I got a 3-bedroom house or apartment, I'm going to take that $30. I'm going to take that 3 bedrooms and I'm going to multiply it times, let's say 40. And it's telling me that when all those rooms are occupied, I'm going to be bringing in $120 a night, right? And if I multiply that times 30, that means, you know, for the month, the most I could bring in is $3,600. So,
and this is based off you charging by the room.
For the room, because yes, let me do that again. So $40 a night is telling me that I can make per room, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, these are my business travelers in my shared housing environment. $40 a night for a room. I got 3 rooms, so I multiply that times 3. So 40 times. Let's clear everything and do it all over again. So 40 times 3 rooms. That's $120 that I'm going to make on the whole house when everything is occupied for the night, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's 30 days in a month. So I'm going to multiply that times 30. And wrong. So 120 times 30 is telling me for the month, if everything is occupied, it's going to bring in $3,600, right? Now, I don't base our income off of 100% occupancy, because in most cases you're not going to have 100% occupancy. And if everything has to be perfect in order for you to make money, rule number 1 in real estate, then chances are you're not going to make money, because real estate never goes perfect. But what I typically do is I say, depending on the area, based on historically what me and my students do, you should be averaging anywhere from 80 to 85, 90% occupancy when you optimize the way I teach my students to optimize. Because here's the thing. Like, there's a big part of doing Airbnb properly is not just putting a listing up and then thinking it's going to work, because that's what most people do. But my students, what they do is they model me exactly how I do it so that they get exactly the same results, right? And so Airbnb loves the way we optimize, because when I optimize properly, then Airbnb, I don't have to market any of my listings. Airbnb sends us all the business travelers we need to keep our listings booked in full. But you have to optimize it properly. And that's a whole nother thing. But that's
and you teach that. You teach that in your coaching courses.
Definitely, right. So what happens is when you optimize, what's going to happen is Airbnb, you should on average be doing at least about 80 in Chicago, because you have such a high, it's a high demand area. There's a lot of high population, high demand. You're going to be between more like 85 and 90%. In places like where I'm at in Rochester, New York, you're going to be somewhere between 80 and 90. So I use 85 as my my benchmark. So instead of 100% in Chicago, I'm going to knock this down to 90%. So if I multiply that times 0.9, it's telling me that at 90% occupancy, I'm going to be bringing in $3,240, right?
Not too shabby.
Okay, not too shabby, but don't forget there's rent. So let's go back to that $3,600. That's 100% occupancy. One of the things that me and my students are able to do is sleep very, very well at night, knowing that we'll never have to pay rent out of our pocket, right? So because when you optimize properly, then what we do is we also use the formula to tell us what we can pay for rent. And what I typically do in like New York City in high population areas with high demand, we go anywhere from 45 to 50%, right, to determine how much we can pay for rent, so that we'll know that when this place is when our listings are properly optimized, we can do that much. We could do that in our sleep. Like, it's not a problem. We'll never have to worry about having enough cash flow to pay our rent. And so, but on normal areas like where I'm at, it's typically around 35-40%. So in Chicago, let's go 45% here. So if I knock this down to 45%, multiply that 3,600 by 0.45, it's telling me that I can pay about $1,600 for a 3-bedroom over there. So let's take a quick peek. Now, give or take a few dollars, but let's take a real quick peek on Zillow and see what the 3 bedrooms are going for in Chicago. So we go to Chicago.
And this is whether it's going to be a home or it's going to be a condo.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. Right? Doesn't matter. So we're going to do that. Home, apartment, doesn't matter. And we got 3+ bedroom on here as far as one of our filters, and we're filtering from low to high. Now, this is what's going to dictate where you're going to be. A lot of times, this is where people mess up. They think, man, if I do this, I want to be by the water. I want to be downtown. I want to be like, no, that's not how you do it, because now you're thinking about the wrong thing, and you're putting yourself in a box. It's the numbers that dictate where we're going to be, as long as it's not in a war zone, because when our guests come, we don't want them to feel like they're not safe.
Right.
Right. And we also don't want to be in the best part of town either. Why? Because it won't fit formula.
Right.
But as long as it's a decent area, it works. Right. So the numbers are what dictate. So as we look at the numbers told us that we could pay up to $1,620 for a rental in this area. So we're going to look, and we're scrolling down, and there's a number of properties here that are way below 1,600, right? I don't know the areas, but for instance, if this $1,200 one, 3-bed, 1-bath, it's in a decent area. I don't know. It's a condo. It might make sense, right? You're going to know your areas in your own area. And then you're going to say, okay, I like that area. It's a decent area. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath for $1,250, right? Here's another one, 3-bedroom, $1,250. So let's just imagine $1,250 is what we end up paying, right? if we're bringing in $3,240 at 90% occupancy, and I subtract what I'm paying for rent, $1,200, I think $1,250, I think we said it was $1,250. Yeah. That means I'm going to be keeping $1,990 in my pocket every month after I pay my rent.
I like it.
Oh, I love it. So because I got a lot of them. I love it. So and my students love it too. And that's how that works. So then what we do is we say, okay, based on the template that I give you. And in fact, if your students are interested in the template, this is what they can do. If they go over to jimgcoachingclub.com, go to jimgcoachingclub.com, you go onto the website, and on the front page, in fact, I'll show you real quick. I'll put it on there, jimgcoachingclub.com. Boom. On the front page, there's that guy. And then you get to see some of my student testimonials and things and what people are actually doing, right? But here, you could download the free cheat sheet, right? Everything I'm showing you is in there. You could go ahead and download the free cheat sheet, and that'll give you the template that I'm talking about. Now, one of the things that my students get is when they download the cheat sheet, they're not getting that one. It's a little bit different than when they get, because it's part of the academy. And when they go and they fill it out, they all send me their cheat sheet when they get it, their template. And that template, I go in, I look at it, and I tweak it so that they get maximum results. Nice. So I personally tweak it because as a landlord, I already know what we're looking for and what you don't, how you want, what you want to say and what you don't want to say. Not necessarily, you don't want to say it not because you're being evasive, but sometimes people have a tendency to just talk too much, right? Or they have a tendency to say some things that make people think, if this person is sending me this and he's saying all this, it's a scam. Like, no, it's not a scam, but you got to know how to engage them initially so that they reach back out to you.
Yeah, right. For sure. Right.
And that's what we do. And so literally within 24 hours after they join the academy, they have their cheat sheet. I get it. Its template is done. And then they have landlords reaching out because this is what they do. They take that template that they use that I tweaked for them and sent back to them. They go into one of those listings, and then what they do is they go request a tour. They click add a message. They copy paste that language in there. Boom, and they hit send tour request. Right? They hit send tour request. They do, and what we call is 10 a days. Like my students, we call them a 10 a days. So you don't really want to be sending out 50, 30, 60, 70 of these messages a day. You only keep it to about 10 of them. Right. And then what you want to do is you want to hit save on here so that you know which ones you've sent. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. And then you go about your business. That should typically take you about 20 minutes in the morning, 20, 30 minutes. You do it early in the morning. And the rest of the day, you're just chilling. And your landlords are reaching back out to you and inviting you out, the ones that are interested in what we're doing.
I just spend a lot of time on Zillow because I'm moving in a week. So yeah, you can run through that side really quickly.
Yeah, real quick. So 20 minutes in the morning and that's it. And then literally by the end of the week, you've already met. And one of the things I do is with Airbnb passive income, one of the things I do with my students is I teach them that number one, there's 5 phases that come with this stuff. Like 5 phases. The first phase is getting that first property in the first 14 to 21 days when you do it the way we do it. That's, again, only properties that are giving you 2 to 3 times what the rent is every month. So that's how we're able to build and gain financial freedom and independence so quickly. Why? Because even though we don't own the place, we're making as much or more than what the landlords are making. Right. And then because we're leasing and not buying, our return on investment is 100% a month. That's over 1,000% return on investment every year. That's how we build generational wealth, right? And change generational cycles. Why? Because, think about it. It's like going into an ATM. If you went to an ATM and you deposited $1 and you got 2 or 3 back out, how many times would you do that? As many times as you can, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing, right? So that's what we do. And then once you do that, like we don't wait until you got keys in your hand. Like part of the thing, and I tell people this all the time, and my kids, like, if you're trying to be successful at anything, what I call, and this is why my program is called the Accelerator, Airbnb Accelerator, the accelerated way, the fast track way to get to success in anything that you're doing, if you can find someone that you like and trust that has had significant success in that thing that you're interested in, and they're actually doing it. It's not something they learned on YouTube or just read a book, but they're really doing it. And you can get them to take you under their wing and not just talk to you about it, but show you exactly what they're doing and how they do it so that you can model exactly what they do so that you can get the same results. You got it. That's it. That will accelerate. There's no trial and error. There's no figuring out as you go. There's no reinventing the wheel. Does that make sense?
This makes perfect sense.
So the way we do it is I'm hand-holding you through. It's like what I do with my students, as I told you, that's part of the thing that, like, I only have 4 things that are on my list that are important to me. And I spend a lot of time with my students hand-holding them through every step of the process, every phase where they're modeling exactly what I do. And I do that personally, right? So I hand-hold them through that so that they can, for a couple of reasons. One, I want them to understand this stuff like the back of their hand so that no one can ever take it from them. Number 2, so that they're not dependent on anyone. And number 3, so that they can duplicate it and do it again and do it again and do it again. Once they got their first place is generating income, now they could do it again, do it again. And here's the benefit of that. Because it's simple, like the way we put it together, because it's simple, you doing it again and again, the only thing that isn't that determines how much you can grow and how wide you can grow is the vision that God's given you, not me for you or anyone else that's putting limitations on what you can do. Right? It's based on that. And then here's the other thing. When we start talking about legacy, all my kids, all of them do Airbnb. Why? Because it's not complicated. It's simple. And they watch that. They're watching and they're going, Dad, this is fun. This seems like fun. And it is, because it's not like being a landlord. Right. And so now you're able to take that and pass it on to others that you care and you love, care about and you love. And now with them, the reason why, like, for me, it makes such a big deal that they're doing it is because it's about again, that legacy. Well, that gift, like, all our kids are all talented. Like, we as parents, we can see the gifts that God's blessed our kids with. Like, if we're watching, a lot of times people say, oh, that's just a parent being a parent. No, like, we could see it. Sometimes it's just not ever developed the way it's supposed to be. In many cases, it's because they're so stuck doing all this other stuff. And when you're on that hamster wheel, now let me make something clear. If they're called to be punching a clock, if they're called to be doing that, I'm going to be the one encouraging them to do what they're called to do. But if they're only doing it because they're trying to pay the bills and they don't know any other way, then there's a problem.
Correct.
Then there is a problem. When they now have their time, like my kids, like my daughter, my youngest daughter, she just graduated in May. She has her Airbnb. She just got back from Aruba a couple months ago. She was in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. She's headed to Alaska, right? Like, in that, she doesn't punch a clock. It's just her Airbnb income. And the beauty of it is now she's able to see, now I see what mom's doing. Now I see what dad's doing. I understand what they're talking about. And the gifts that God's blessed me with, I can see how I can take those gifts and make really my mark on the world the way I love it. That's what this is about, right? This is where all my students, it's not about just us making a bunch of money, like I said, and living like pigs. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than us.
So if folks just go to jimgcoaching.com, there's the way to contact you and do everything from that site for them to get started, for someone to get started on their own journey.
Look, they go here, they can do that, and then they scroll down, shows them some of the stuff my students are doing. And then if they want to hook up with me and schedule a one-on-one, they just hit, they got a button on there where they can schedule a session with me, and I'll even jump on with them and not necessarily sure.
Because that was the next question I was going to ask, because I know after people are watching this, they want to know how to become one of your students, Sensei. you know.
So you jump on there. There's a bunch of questions and answers that a lot of times people have. You jump on there. What I would recommend is that you go on. You can message me from there. There's also when you go on, there's also going to be a page that like a workshop. So you go jimgcoachingclub.com, and on the bottom it says what I recommend you do. Because here you can set appointment from there too. But this is what I would recommend you do. On the cheat sheet, go ahead and download that cheat sheet. And then what I'll also do is my system will send you an email, and it's gonna show you how you can go into one of my webinars and check out the webinar and that. And then when you do that, then you'll get a lot better background about how this stuff works. And then from there, you'll be able to schedule an appointment with me. Just go on the website, schedule an appointment. There'll be stuff in there. You can do that. And mention, when you do this, mention Trey and Alexx, and I'll know where you came from. And then from there, I'll make sure, I take, extra special care of you as well.
All right.
Yeah,
That's it.
That's what's up. Man. So many gems in so little time.
Yeah, was that helpful?
Oh, very, 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 man. We appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule to give us an hour to just enlighten people on how they can make. And that's the thing, non-residual income. Like, keep it coming. I mean, residual income. Keep it coming while I'm just chilling, Yeah. So cool. Once again, jimgcoachingclub.com. Make sure you guys hit him up, become a student if you like, and he has all of the keys of your success in 2021 and making money and profiting off an Airbnb that you don't even own.
Don't even own.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So we're here every single Wednesday. Thank you so very much for checking us out. I'm Trey the Chocolate Jock.
I'm Alex Dupree.
Deuces.